The true story, as told by its witnesses, with some names changed to protect privacy. Al-Darb al-Ahmar neighborhood, where the past hides in the shadows. In the heart of Cairo, where narrow alleys and ancient stones carry the scent of centuries past, Al-Darb al-Ahmar stands tall like an open book on pages of history. The place is filled with sounds, the calls of vendors, the sound of footsteps on the paved ground, the echo of the call to prayer from the tall minarets. But amidst this familiar scene, there is one house unlike any other, a house that eyes and hearts avoid, a house that, if you pass by it at night, you feel as if you are being watched, and that the darkness behind its windows is not as empty as you think. The house has 3 floors, its dilapidated wooden balconies leaning slightly toward the street, as if they are about to collapse. The walls are cracked, their peeling paint revealing layers more than 100 years old. The iron doors are rusty, and one bears long scratches that look like human fingernails, or worse. The deal of a lifetime, or the deal of death. In the late 1990s, Uncle Hassan was a well-known real estate broker in the neighborhood. One day, a large fabric merchant contacted him looking for a spacious house in the area. Hassan remembered the abandoned house. The price offered was unbelievable, but when he told the neighborhood residents, their expressions changed. "Be careful, Hassan. The house isn't clean, and whoever enters it doesn't leave the same place they were." Hassan laughed, dismissing the matter as mere superstition. The next day, he took the merchant to inspect the house. A mysterious owner and a veiled warning. At the door, a tall, thin old man appeared, his eyes sunken in a face as pale as bones. His voice was deep and hoarse, as if the air was passing through a hole. With a faint smile, he said, "The house is for sale, but after you leave, there's no going back." The merchant ignored the warning and closed the deal that same day. The first night. On the first night of the merchant's move-in, his wife and their young son, everything was quiet until midnight. The wife woke her husband in fear and whispered, "Can you hear me?" There was the sound of heavy footsteps coming from upstairs, even though they were all on the ground floor. The husband grabbed a stick and climbed up, finding the rooms dark and dusty, but he noticed small footprints heading toward a tightly closed room. When he tried to open it, the door didn't budge, as if it had been welded from the inside. Voices speak. As the nights passed, the sounds changed. They were no longer just footsteps, but whispers in a strange language, muffled laughter, and sometimes a child's crying coming from the walls themselves. The son would stand for hours talking to Uncle Hussein. When they asked him about him, he would point to a corner of the room and say, "He says you should leave before he gets angry." Summoning the sheikh. The merchant sought help from a local sheikh. He entered to recite the Quran, but after a few minutes, his voice began to choke and his face paled to the point of death. He ran out saying, "The house has a covenant. Blood was spilled here, and its smell is still present." The buried secret. From Uncle Hassan's research, it was revealed that the house was built in the 19th century and belonged to Mustafa al-Rifai. One night, he and his entire family were slaughtered, and the servants disappeared. The bodies were never found. Since then, each new resident experiences strange events and sometimes disappears without a trace.
The family's last night. 2 weeks later, the family decided to leave. But on the last night, the merchant woke up to a chilling sensation. He opened his eyes and saw dozens of faceless figures standing around his bed. Their bodies were motionless, but their heads moved in a way that no human could. He wanted to scream, but he couldn't. He felt a cold hand touch his face before he lost consciousness. In the morning, they all found themselves in the living room, the front door open, their clothes covered in dust. Testimonies from the neighborhood. 1. Uncle Saeed, coffee seller. Every so often, I see a light on the 3rd floor at night, and then suddenly it goes out. Once I heard a woman screaming from upstairs, but when I looked up, there was no one there. 2. Ahmed, neighbor from the opposite house. My son was playing in the street and came back terrified. He said he saw a man standing on the balcony calling for him. When I looked up, I found the balcony empty. 3. Neighborhood adventurer. My friend and I entered the house 2 years ago. I swear to God, we heard the sound of a door closing from upstairs, followed by footsteps coming down the stairs. We ran and never came back. Exploration attempts. Over the years, a number of adventurous young men have attempted to enter the house. Everyone who entered came out panting, refusing to talk about what they saw. Some reported finding strange graffiti in non-Arabic letters on the walls, and others swore they saw the shadow of a woman carrying a child pass in front of them and disappear. The most terrifying story is about a young man who entered the house alone and only emerged 3 days later in a state of complete collapse, uttering only one word. "He's inside, waiting for me." Today, the house still stands, the doors closed, but everyone who passes by feels a stare piercing their heart. Some nights the sound of old music can be heard from upstairs, stopping just as suddenly as it began. Question: would you have the courage to stand in front of it after midnight?